So we're going to do something a little different today. I'm starting a new playlist on my channel called Talk and Draw, and each one of these videos will be centered on a different topic. And for the most part, it'll be on a topic in relation to art or comic book creation, because that's what my channel is mostly about. However, I may venture into some other topics if I feel like talking about something in particular. The good thing for you is you get to watch me draw instead of staring at my ugly mug for the whole video. You know what? I'll show it to you anyway. But thanks for being here and watching, and if you like what I do, please subscribe, like, and comment on the video. It really helps me get seen by more people, and one of the things we're trying to do is build a larger audience for Spectre Comics and here on YouTube. And if you like my art, I post several times a week on Instagram, so go ahead and follow me there. I really appreciate it. So now let's jump in. So our topic today is time management, and here we are working on Spectre Comics Issue 6, page 20, and what you don't know is that I've been working on this page for several weeks. And even more amazing and frustrating is that this issue that I'm working on now was started way back in the summer of 2017. And whenever you watch this video in the future, I'm posting it in early 2020, so it's been a long time for this one comic issue. The last issue that I finished was issue 5, and that was way back in 2016. And I can't even believe that it's been 5 years since I finished a book. But I originally had a realistic goal for completing one comic issue a year, and my books average between 28 and 32 pages long. And my current Spectre story is designed to run for 8 issues, so that means that I still have 2 more issues to go after I complete issue 6. And you may be saying to yourself, this guy is not qualified to give me time management advice. However, I mostly want to talk about what not to do so you don't fall into the same trap of working for years on the same project just like me. So a little background on me. I'm a full-time architect. I've got a pretty demanding job, and I manage multiple projects on a daily basis, and my days are packed. They can be exhausting. And so the last thing on my mind to do when I come home is to go upstairs and sit in my studio and draw on my tablet all night, because I've been on a computer all day. I am tired. And the fact of the matter is I love working on my comics. I love drawing. I love creating. And it's something I enjoy doing. And I like filling in my days, the extra time I have in any given day with doing that. But the fact is that it can be a slow process. Now you're watching on the screen here me drawing really fast, but that's because I sped the video up 400% so that it would run faster. And it's really slow, and I constantly can go through these periods where I'm drawing and redrawing, and it can waste hours. I can spend an hour drawing a hand or some mundane detail, and artists tend to be perfectionists, and that's why we tend to do that. So there's that fact of just how long it takes to do the work. And then there's the idea of just juggling multiple personal projects. And to add more context to that, let's talk about what my goals are. And on a level, I'm trying to complete my book so I have a product to sell. I'm trying to build my audience on social media. And again, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and more links in the description below. And also create a YouTube audience that likes my work. So don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and comment on the video. You're the best if you do. And so with all those goals and a full-time job and a wife who'd prefer that I talk to her sometimes, it can be difficult to get any actual work done on this comic. And that being said, let's talk about some of the things that you should not do. First, you can tend to take breaks while you're working on a project. You'll work a couple days and then you'll take a day off. Don't take long breaks from your project. And if you do take a break, don't take too many, or don't take one for too long, because it is difficult to jump back into the project. You look at this mountain of work that you're doing. Now, when you kind of get in a flow with your work, it's easy to kind of jump right back into it because everything's set up, ready to go. But if you stop, getting motivated to start again can be like climbing a mountain. And you look at that mountain and you say, I do not feel like climbing that today. And then the cycle continues and you end up doing nothing and making no progress. And there's no offense here to people who love climbing mountains. I'm sure it's the best thing ever. But, in relation to comic book work or art in general, when you stop a project and you wait a long time, it's so easy just to kind of not work on it. So don't take long breaks from your project. Another thing to not do is don't waste time on one detail. And I am very guilty of this. As I mentioned earlier, I've been known to get hung up on drawing a hand or a background detail. And I mean, I've spent an hour drawing a hand, and at the end of the day, you've accomplished nothing. So there's nothing worse than finally sitting down and working on your drawing, and you get hung up on this one detail, and it takes your whole session, especially when you have limited time daily to work on your comic or your art piece. You work on this one little section, and then the day's gone, and you finally get that uninterrupted hour to sit and draw, and you waste the entire window that you had set aside on a mundane detail. And then guess what, dummy? You've made no progress today. So you may as well just go watch Rick and Morty reruns instead of drawing. But you know what? I do that anyway. Another thing to not do is to not think that you have to draw everything from scratch every time. I use and reuse backgrounds and characters whenever I can. I just don't have the time to draw and redraw the same thing over and over again. And if you work digitally on a tablet with a program like Photoshop, like I do, you can save so much time by reusing things that are repeated constantly. I have a lot of scenes that take place on the Zebulon, which is the name of the ship that my characters fly around in on their adventures. And thus, I have a library that I save, a folder on my desktop of buildings and interior backgrounds and vehicles that, I've drawn it once. I save that to a file folder on my desktop, and I pull it up and use it as I need. There is no reason to constantly redraw the same thing over and over again, especially if it looks really great. You got it the way you wanted it to look. I keep this library. I'd recommend doing that for yourself. Set up a folder on your desktop, save your assets, file them, buildings, characters, interior shots, spaceship, whatever is in your comic, things you constantly reuse. I'd be here all decade drawing if I was constantly redrawing these things from scratch. Another thing is you don't have to do everything yourself. So the comic book is the main project, and your time should mostly be focused on doing that, because without the project, what are you doing? But there's other things you have to do, like you're trying to build an audience on social media. I'm trying to make YouTube videos. I'm trying to, keep up on social media. My wife basically runs my Space Misadventures Instagram. She's growing the following much faster than I could myself. I provide her with some images each week, and she creates the post, and she helps me by interacting with the followers and people who like the images. And I interact sometimes, but she's great at keeping the feed fresh and updated, and she keeps reminding me, hey, post, I'm of an age where social media was not around my whole life. And in some ways I find it to be cumbersome, but it is important. So by having that help, it really saves me time and sanity, keeping up with it. Don't let yourself get stuck. Another thing, if you find yourself stuck on a particular element or even dialogue, what I like to do is I put in a placeholder, I highlight it, remind myself to come back to it, and then you just go and, what you want to do is you want to see progress every time you work on your project. So, I'm stuck on this area, I'm going to move on to this area, and I'm going to work over here. And as you complete more of the page or your art piece, you kind of get more done, and then you come back to the difficult part later. Maybe on that particular day or this particular hour, you didn't feel like drawing that hand or that foot or that building, but you kind of put a placeholder in and you come back to it, and it ends up working out really well. And yes, I'm really harping on this hand issue I had. I drew this one hand in this picture and it looked horrible, and I just couldn't get over the fact that I couldn't get it right. But that's a story for another day. And now let's talk about some tips of things you should do that I think would help. I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube for how to draw faster. And one of the things I've garnered from these videos is to sketch quickly, which seems obvious. And how I interpret that advice is to go in on a page and you lay everything out really quickly and sketchy. So I start my comics with a pencil drawing, which I do sketch quickly. And then I scan it into the computer and I bring it into my formatted page and create the panels, and I start sketching, or what would be considered inking, in my digital tablet. And I keep it sketchy but legible. The good thing is you lay out the page real fast, you get the characters in, you kind of figure out where the text is going to go. This allows you to kind of take a step back and see where all the parts and pieces are, and then you can kind of go back in and fill in the details and fine tune the drawing and maybe move stuff around. I draw everything on different layers, so it allows me to, oh, I don't have enough room for this word balloon, so I'm going to move my character slightly to the right so that I can read it better and I can get the whole amount of text on the page. This process does two things. It lets you get the layout established at the beginning of each new page, and second, it's much easier to go in and edit something you've already drawn than to kind of look at a blank panel. Like if I did one panel at a time and I drew one panel and finished it and moved on to the next panel, it gets more daunting when I stare at the next panel, which is blank, as opposed to if I've sketched the whole page out quickly, I know how the whole thing's going to look when it's done, I'm just going to clean it up now. It's much less daunting to kind of go in, fill in, basically it's always easier to edit than it is to draw from scratch. So I kind of look at it as a process of I'm editing what I already drew and I'm making it better. You can see on my sheet here that I've done a full sketch underlay, and I go into each panel and I fill in the detail and I clean up the lines. This helps me spend time on the detail where I need it. There's no reason for me to detail a lot of things if it's going to end up being covered up by something in the foreground anyway. So by seeing everything laid out early, it lets me focus on the things that are going to be visible on the page. Another thing I would recommend doing to help save time is to use 3D models for complex things that you use over and over again. So some people feel like you're cheating if you use 3D modeling and then trace the result, but I find that it helps so much. I say whatever. I've proven I can draw the things I'm modeling, and it saves so much time to just build a 3D model once in a program like SketchUp, and even creating a simple blocking model that you can rotate and change and zoom in on or zoom out of. It helps you get the perspective right. It helps you get the proportions right. Here I've created the Zebulon in SketchUp, and again, this is the main ship for my characters, Spark, Storbo, and Risa to fly around in. And I'm not going to spend time drawing the ship over and over again. I use this ship so much because all of their adventures are traveling through space. So we constantly see the ship in various panels, and you see it at different angles, and you see it landed on the ground, you see it in flight in space. I don't want to draw that thing 10,000 times. But if I can model it once, rotate it, get the shot I need, and then bring it in and then just trace it and add the detail in, it saves a tremendous amount of time. I've created actually models of a lot of things that I use over and over in my comics. I've got the Zebulon here. I've got the enemy ship for my current book. I've modeled the Great Hall, which is the main building on the Spectre homeworld, the enemy base, specific interiors that were unique that I kind of wanted to see what it looks like if I'm standing over here and looking over here. All this helps to work faster, and I actually plan on doing a SketchUp tutorial on how to use these little, building little simple models to help you kind of draw. So stay tuned for that. And finally, my last time management tip is to have a page format template for your comic pages. I currently print my comics with Kablam, so I use their comic template to set up my sheets, and I actually have created a video for that I'll link in the description below. But above and beyond that, I have a sheet template which has a lot of presets that I personally use for my comic pages. It has a lot of specific items that I use, and things are specifically formatted for the way I like to do it. That way I don't have to do it every time I set up a new sheet. So I'll grab the sheet template. It has a standard panel layer in with the border, the thickness I like it, and by just erasing the gaps between the panels. I keep layers on the page for different gray tones. I draw with black and white. My comics are black and white, but I use gray tones to shade various areas. I only use 3 grays, and I don't want to have to try to guess every time which those grays are. I want them to be consistent from page to page. So I've got a light gray, a medium gray, and a dark gray, and just by keeping those in little squares at the top corner of the page, I can go in and just select with the eyedropper which gray I'm using, and then from page to page there's a consistency there. And I have a lot of space scenes which ships travel through outer space, so I keep a layer of stars hidden on the page in the template. So if I ever need to use stars, I just grab that and I just format it to the way I want it. I resize the stars and put it in the panel. I can do a video on my standard sheet template if you want. Just let me know in the comments below. And before this video gets too long, I think I'm going to leave it right there. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my rambling. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't, you can hit the thumbs down button. If you didn't like the video, I do appreciate you watching for this long. Don't forget to subscribe if you like what I do. Even subscribe if you don't, I don't mind. And if you have any time-saving comic tips to add, be sure to leave them in the comments section below. If we get enough other tips, I'll do a video on your suggested tips and give you credit for the information you provide. Look at that. We finally completed page 20 of issue 6. Don't worry, page 21 I anticipate will be even harder and take even longer. Don't forget to follow me on social media, links in the description. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.